A special thanks goes out to Barry V, who sent me an article entitled, "What Happens When Your Sexual Awakening Hits and You're Already Married?" It was published last summer and was written by Hannah Hickok, which sounds like an adult film star, which probably isn't an accident. But the title itself is transparent. What the title is really saying is, I want to sleep with other men, but I'm married. Does this make me a bad person? Let's dive right in. She starts, "When I told my husband about the time I almost slept with a woman before we met, he got an intrigued look in his eyes, probably imagining threesomes in our future. And sure," she says, "we might try that someday, but I'm less interested in whether the possibility turns him on than what it does for me." At 32, she continues, "With only straight relationship experience and less than a year of marriage under my belt, I've grown resistant to the idea of clinging to a certain sexual identity for the rest of my life. The prospect leaves me with a specific kind of FOMO, a fear of missing out on the intimacy I haven't had, but still might want to. Though my husband and I are currently happy in our hetero-monogamous marriage, how could we know if that format will continue to meet our needs for the next several decades? It seems presumptuous to pretend to know what my peace leave will want at, say, age 64. First off, she's definitely slept with a woman. Women never almost do anything. They go all the way. If she says she almost had a three-way with her roommate and the power forward of the basketball team in college, she 100% did it. There's no almost about it. If she says she almost let two football players run a train on her in college, she definitely did it, and it was probably more than two players. Girls like to use this almost did this or that to gauge your reaction. If it's not a negative reaction, they'll later admit to you that she did it. If it is a negative reaction, she will never admit to it. But this chick absolutely slept with another woman, and she told this to her man because she wants some three-way fun with two guys. Do not get it twisted, gentlemen. This is exactly why she did this. She wants us to think she just so happened to mention it, but women never just say things for no reason. There is always an ulterior motive. Well, you already gave us that reason, Donovan. It's because she wants some action with her husband and another woman at the same time. Negative. Hooking up with her husband and another woman at the same time is a means to an end, and women have been using this trick on men for decades. You see, no woman ever really wants to hook up with a dude and another chick at the same time. But the reason a woman floats the idea or insinuates that something like this might be on the horizon is not because she wants to have fun with another woman, and it's not because she wants to see you getting action with another female. Oh no, it's because she wants to sleep with other men. So many guys fall for this trap. They say, "Oh my God, Ashley wants to have a three-way with me and Carla. How lucky am I?" Then a week later, Ashley hits him with, "Okay, it's my turn." And he's like, "What?" And she says, "Oh, don't worry. You don't have to be involved if you don't want to be. I can find another guy." And when he tells her, "Well, wait, you can't do that," she'll say, "Oh, yes, I can. I let you hook up with me and Carla, and now I want to hook up with you and Kevin from the sales department at work. And if you don't want to, his friend Dave will." This happens all the time, guys, and you need to understand this. If your woman suggests a menage a trois, unprovoked or unsolicited, she's definitely thinking about being the cream filling in an Oreo cookie. Pun definitely intended. She knows that you would never sign off on it, but she wants to sleep with other guys with your permission. So she gives you what every guy dreams about, which is the opportunity to hook up with two girls at the same time. Then, just like the gang leader in prison who is nice to you in the beginning, gives you cigarettes and protection and an extra honey bun from commissary, only to find out later he's going to make you his plaything for he and his crew, your girl is going to hit you with, "I let you do it, so now you have to let me do it. And if you didn't head this off the pass, she's got you." The best way to avoid this is to say this. You do understand that if we do this, I'm not going to give you permission to do the same thing with two guys, right? Just so we're clear, I will never give you permission to do this with two other guys, whether I decide to do this or not. So if that's what you're thinking, you might want to consider rescinding your offer and leave it at that. She continues, "I'm part of a wave of women seeing their sexuality through a new lens, one that renders itself increasingly fluid and shame-free as we shed culturally imposed roles and explore new kinks and curiosities. But what if you're already married when you do that internal accounting? Translation: my husband doesn't do it for me anymore, and I want to step out on him." Gentlemen, this woman 100% wants to cheat, but instead of coming right out and saying, "I want to cheat," she wraps it in a pretty package by saying, "I've grown resistant to the idea that clinging to a certain sexual identity for the rest of my life," which means I don't want to be intimate with just my husband and only my husband for the rest of my life. These are the musings of a woman who has given her body to too many men. Any woman who has slept with more than 10 men will get what we like to characterize as the 7-year itch. That 7-year itch is simply the promiscuous tendencies from before resurfacing because she is 100% certain that her husband isn't going anywhere, which doesn't give her tingles anymore. She continues, rather than begrudgingly accepting a limited love life, to keep it clean for YouTube, as a condition of long-term partnership, a rising number of women are acting on a feeling of FOMO about sexual experiences we might not have had before or after marriage. I love how this chick wants us to think that she hasn't slept with at least 100 men. I love how she thinks we believe that she hasn't had a train run on her by 3 dudes. She actually believes that we believe that she's never had bedroom fun with 2 guys in one day, or let a guy go backdoor on her, or had bedroom fun in public. She isn't missing out on anything because she's had it already. All she's talking about is having biblical relations with men other than her husband. That's it. There's nothing complicated or psychological about this. This chick wants to hook up with other guys, and that's all there is to it. A limited love life is a monogamous life, and that's what she means when she says this. She wants us to think she means a different kind of intimacy, something kinky like dom sub sex, role-playing and stuff like that. But she's talking about different men, not different experience. Again, guys, this is what happens when a girl sleeps around for too long. Unless you know how to keep her in line and keep your value high, which you can learn how to do in my 5-part 7-hour audio course, How to Build a Quality Woman from the Ground Up, she's going to want to step out on you. And even then, she still might. I'll use myself as an example. My girlfriend loves her some Donovan, guys, please believe. But don't think for 1 second that just because I'm a high-value guy and I keep her in line, that she wouldn't want to take some sausage on the side if she knew I wouldn't find out. Don't get me wrong, Devon's great, but Devon is also a woman. She too has slept around. The urges are there. I know it, and she knows it. And when those urges become too much to handle, she'll do something stupid, and I'll have to kick her out of my life for good. I take nothing for granted, gentlemen, and neither should you. Now, don't mistake me here. I'd like to think that it's far less likely that my girlfriend would cheat than other women would on other men. But that doesn't mean it's impossible, and I always keep this in the front of my mind. The point is that there are 2 factors that play in terms of this woman wanting to have another man's sausage. Number 1, she's a garden tool and has garden tool tendencies. And number 2, her husband hasn't maintained or elevated his value. Or number 3, both. All of this word salad like internal accounting and culturally imposed roles, it's not fooling anyone. This chick wants to sleep around again, and the only thing in her way is her husband. And the way she's talking, he might not be an obstacle for too much longer. The article continues. Within traditional conceptions of marriage, women do not have the right to explore their love life options, says Sandra Faulkner, PhD, Director of Women's, Gender, and Sexual Studies at Bowling Green University. But for many women, it continues, the idea of marriage is changing. Wanting to be sensually compatible with a partner has delayed marriage or altered whether women want to get married at all. Put simply, we're prioritizing our pleasure more than ever and are far less willing to sacrifice it at the altar of marriage. Wait, what? Is she serious? So now we are characterizing the expectation to stay faithful to your husband as do not have the right to explore their sexuality? This is why relationships are in the toilet, guys. Articles just like this. Women read this and think, yeah, our right to explore our love life options has been stripped from us. And nothing could be further from the truth. In 2020, women are encouraged both directly and indirectly to explore new sexual experiences. They're encouraged to sleep around and get it out of their system, then settle down and get married. Okay, so that's been normalized now, but now they want us to be okay with them sleeping around while they're married too? It wasn't enough for us to be all right with women getting the youth, innocence, and beauty completely plowed out of them in their 20s and still be waiting on you with open arms when you're 38 with 4 kids, 3 baby daddies, 2 abortions, and 1 messed up sense of entitlement. No, that's not enough. You want to continue the party even after we commit. Get the hell out of here with that. Then she wants to talk about women not wanting to sacrifice monogamy at the altar of marriage. This is women wanting their cake and eating it too. You see, ladies, you can prioritize your pleasure, and you do. And if you're not willing to sacrifice it at the altar of marriage, then don't get married. That's the logical solution here, right? But once again, women want all of the benefits without any of the sacrifice. They want all of the financial, emotional, and tax benefits that come with marriage without having to sacrifice the right to sleep around. Yeah, thanks, but no thanks, sweetie. I'll pass. Maybe it'll work with your husband because he doesn't have any backbone, but for guys out there who are worth a damn, this is not going to fly. She continues. Many women weigh the fear of missing out on sexual pleasure against the fear of missing out on a long-term relationship and children, says human sexuality expert Lex Brown James, PhD, LMFT, CSE, founder of the Institute for Sexuality and Intimacy. Jesus Christ. Women often want to believe that if everything else in a partnership is good, they'll be fine without great sex. So pleasure is often shelved until the frustration is overwhelming. But now, women are claiming their experiences more and are less likely to be silent about their sexuality. Okay, all of that gibberish in that paragraph, masquerading as research, is two things. Number one, a waste of money. The key to a woman's sexual health and wellness is to have a lot of sex with just one man their entire lives. She pair bonds with him, which makes it even better for her because she is emotionally connected to him like no other man on earth. Plus, she avoids all the risks that come with sleeping around, like STDs, STIs, venereal diseases, and the 1,000 eggplant emoji stare, which manifests itself in the soulless eyes of a woman who has been pounded into stoic, emotionless oblivion by phalluses into the hundreds. Number two, it's just a fancy and expensive way to give women permission to sleep around. All this nonsense about sexual health and wellness research is a bunch of BS. They can't just tell women to just go out and get railed by randos into the dozens for no other reason but that they're horny and easy to get between the sheets. That would make them look bad. So they dress it up in research and characterize it as sexual health and wellness so that women can maintain this rosy view of themselves. Oh, look, they spent millions of dollars researching this with all of their studies and surveys. So it has to be healthy to hook up with 7 guys in 5 days, right? In fact, it would be unhealthy not to. All of this money and research must mean it's all true. No, baby girl, it's just a fancy way of telling you to sleep around. That's all there is to it. And by the way, there's no such thing as a human sexuality expert. A happy side effect, the article continues, of this reckoning has been the long overdue light shed on what actually feels good for women and the advent of new resources to that end. I've witnessed more information, research, technologies focused on women's sexual health and wellness, says human sexuality expert Emily Morse, host of Sex with Emily radio show and podcast. Studies have shown that women, more often than men, get bored in long-term relationships. Everyone craves variety, but women often blame their low libido as the problem, when really they need to explore their own desires in their relationship. Oh, good God, give me a break. This Emily Morse chick didn't go to college to become an expert. She didn't get a degree to become an expert. She didn't complete some class or exam to become an expert. No, all Emily had to do was get plowed by 287 guys. So now she's an expert on how to get plowed. But again, we can't call her that. We have to call her a human sexuality expert. And the reason we know she was a garden tool is because a female who wasn't would never host a show called Sex with Emily. That title's a dead giveaway. The article continues. For some women, doing that within the bounds of marriage is enough. Natasha, 32, of Raleigh, North Carolina, didn't start to lust or ask for new things from her husband until well into their 8-year marriage. I realized that marriage came with a lot of compromise and sacrifice in many areas, and that sex could no longer be one of them for me, she says. I was absolutely shortchanging myself before. The older I get, the more open I am to asking for exactly what I want. And who better to experiment with than the person you vowed to spend the rest of your life with? I've gone from a meek, submissive lover to a dominant, demanding one. Think about that for a second. For some women, the article says, doing that within the bounds of marriage is enough. Some women means not that many, as in most women are cheating on their husbands. Doing that within the bounds of marriage is enough. Indirectly says that exploring your newfound sexuality outside of marriage is the norm. To me, it is still unreal for me to read for some women and within the bounds of marriage is enough. Call me naive, but it is still shocking to me that women who remain faithful to their husbands is the exception to the rule. Now, Natasha had it right until about halfway through. She got married young at 24, which was good. She didn't lust after new guys, which is also good. She also understood that marriage came with a lot of compromise and sacrifice. 3 for 3. And she realized that she wanted a little more out of sex, which is fine. But what she thought she wanted and is now getting will eventually end her marriage. I guarantee it, and I'm going to tell you why. I tell my guys all the time, stop worrying so much about a woman's needs in bed, and that hasn't changed. But when a woman realizes she wants more out of bedroom fun, this means her husband is not dominating her, which is what every single woman wants and needs. She wasn't shortchanging herself. Her husband was shortchanging her. I'll tell you exactly how this probably happened. Natasha said to her husband, honey, it would be nice if we could spice things up a bit. And he was shocked and said, "But how? I love making sweet love to you very slowly and deliberately. It's been the same way for 8 years." And she says, "Yeah, I know, and I like it too, but I want you to be a little more forceful." He said to her, "Like how?" She said, "I don't know, smack my butt? Maybe pull my hair?" "Absolutely not," her husband probably replied. "You are a delicate flower, and I will not defile you like that. I will do no such thing." And because he's not dominant enough, she had to become the dominant one, which is not the natural state of a woman. She wasn't a weak, submissive lover. He was not a dominant one, so she had to be. Mark my words, gentlemen, Natasha is going to get tired of being the dominant one and will look for someone to dominate her. And it won't take her long to find someone on Ashley Madison. And given that this article was written last summer, she's probably already gotten an account. The article continues. Other women scratch the sex FOMO itch by opening their monogamous relationships, often temporarily and within certain constraints. Naomi, 38 of New York, was in her mid-30s when she met her husband and had already ticked most sexual adventures off her bucket list. "Having a threesome and being with a woman was the last sexual frontier I wanted to explore," she says. "I brought it up to my husband, and for months we just fantasized about the idea. Finally, we made a plan to have drinks with one of his old hookup buddies, which led us spending a weekend in bed together, then seeing her every few months for a year." Naomi notes that setting expectations with her husband was key to making the arrangement work, and in general, constant communication keeps their sex life feeling safe yet exciting. You know, what gets lost in translation in this paragraph is when Naomi talks about setting expectations with her husband was the key to making that arrangement work. Here's the real question that we need to ask of Naomi. What expectations did she need to set if there's another woman? There isn't. The unspoken expectation she's referring to is that she expected to hook up with her husband and another dude at the same time. It's just like I discussed near the beginning of this video. What other expectations are there to set to make it work? Sounds pretty simple to me. I get one of my ex-friends with benefits to come and share a bed with us. Cut and dried. What other stipulations need to be ironed out? It's that clause that every woman wants to slip in right there at the end. "Oh, by the way, after we do this thing with Sarah, we get to do the same thing with Victor." Wait a minute, who's Victor? He's a guy I hooked up with a while back. Don't worry, it'll be fun, you'll see. The article continues. Still, other women aren't necessarily craving a different kind of fun with their partner, but rather the space to explore their bodies and interests alone. Space that can be hard to come by in the context of marriage and motherhood. That's the case of Jenny Nordbak, 31, a Los Angeles-based writer who has 2 toddlers with her husband of 5 years. "It's important to stay connected to my husband," she says, "but it is equally important to prioritize my self-pleasure and embracing time that is solely about me," says Nordbak, who did a 3-year stint as a sex worker in her 20s, chronicled in her memoir, The Scarlet Letters, My Secret Year of Men in an LA Dungeon. We're taught that our sexual identity defines who we are as a partner, and we don't talk enough about how that can change, adds Nordbak. If you're with a committed long-term partner, it can feel like you're being untrue to the person they fell for if you express desires that reflect internal growth you may be feeling. It doesn't mean you were being fake before if you're interested in exploring something different now. It simply means you're human. So let me get this straight. This chick was an escort in Los Angeles for 3 years. Found a man dumb enough to wipe her up despite getting paid to have biblical relations with men, had a couple of kids, and now she flicks the bean while thinking about the great time she had in the beds of other men while getting paid to do it. But she too throws the word salad at us under the cloak of sexual health. We don't talk about how that can change, she says. Translation: if we get the 7-year itch, we want to sleep with other men. So Jenny characterizes the urge to sleep with other men other than your husband as inner growth that makes you human. Well, she got one thing right. The other is dead wrong. Look, guys, we all want to hook up with attractive people, men and women alike. Regardless of how many men or women you've slept with, that's how this is. But that is what makes us human, not succumbing to the urge to sleep with men outside of your marriage. This is why women never regret cheating on their husbands, guys. You got women out here giving them permission to not only do it, but to not feel bad about it. You're growing. You're experiencing spiritual internal growth. You're not a banana gobbler for sleeping with Dave, the unemployed garage band guitar player who may or may not live in his best friend's van. You're human. It's okay. The process of facing sex FOMO, the article continues, is different for everyone. But for many, it begins with an honest talk about your sexual satisfaction, which married couples should be having on the regular anyway, experts say. While some women's partners may be happy to go along for the ride, Others might feel like the victim of a bait and switch, that their partner committed to a monogamous forever and then asked for a way out of that promise. It's an understandable reaction, but not one that should deter anyone from voicing new needs. Letting go of guilt about your right to pleasure and its inherent fluidity is key to getting the kind of sex you really want. This is exactly what we've been talking about in this community for years, guys. Girl sleeps around in her 20s and performs every kinky act with all the alpha bad boys. She gets married, and all of a sudden, she doesn't want to go down on her husband. All of a sudden, going backdoor is out of the question. Guy gets frustrated and asks his wife, what gives? Why don't you do these things anymore? And she responds with, well, I'm just not that kind of girl anymore, which means you don't turn me on enough to make me want to do the things I did with guys who aroused me in my party years. This ain't bait and switch, guys. This woman is fulfilling both sides of their dualistic imperatives on the dating market. Then asking for a way out of that promise is when a wife suggests an open marriage and the husband goes along with it because he has no other options. Yeah, dudes are going to feel some type of way about that. Then she says, but that shouldn't deter anyone from voicing new needs. And the author kind of has a point here, but not in the way she wants us to think. Let me explain. Every woman wants to be spanked. Every woman likes it rough. Every woman wants to be dominated. And if you are dominating her, she's not going to worry much about role play or anything else that's too complex. Hard, sweaty, rough bedroom fun that leaves her in a heap of exhausted, sweaty soreness never gets old with women. But here's my suggestion, ladies. Don't talk about it, be about it. You want to be dominated? Walk out wearing nothing but heels and a smile. Trust me when I tell you, your man will dominate you. You want to role play? Come out dressed in a naughty schoolgirl outfit and have your man play along. You want to be spanked? Walk out on those same heels and a thong, tell your man you've been a bad girl and you need a spanking, and lay across his lap. He'll give you those love lickings. This idea that communication is key in your sex life is ridiculous because it gives women an excuse to step out. Well, he never took initiative. Okay, fair enough. But the answer is not to become dominant. No, the answer is to dress up in lingerie and serve yourself up on a silver platter. There isn't a red-blooded male on this earth that wouldn't drag you to the bedroom and give you that fantasy you want if you came out in the right outfit. Now, to the men who are watching, you have to voice your expectations as well. Don't be vague. Don't say, well, it would be nice if you wore the thong every once in a while. No, you buy her naughty clothes, lay them out on the bed, take a picture of them, and send them to your woman and say, you're wearing this tonight, and leave it at that. This is exactly how I do it with my girlfriend, and anyone who has ever followed me on social media knows this is true. My girlfriend has never not done exactly what I tell her to do for many reasons, but one of those reasons is that I am very clear about what I want, and women love this. Women cannot resist a man who is upfront and direct about what he wants and is unafraid to demand it from his woman. Women aren't mind readers, guys. You need to be very clear. No, this isn't communicating with her about your sex life. This is flat out instructing her on what she will do. And when you do this, along with pounding her hard, pulling her hair, smacking her ass, and calling her names, guess what happens? She stops thinking about other men. She doesn't get that 7-year itch. All of a sudden, she doesn't want to float the idea of a menage a trois to give herself permission to sleep with other guys. This is what women want, guys, and there are no exceptions. Yes, different women have different kinks and quirks, but by and large, they all want the same things when it comes to sex. To be sexually arousing to her man enough to the point to where he wants to pound her senseless. That's it. This isn't rocket science. There's nothing complicated about female sexuality. It's cut and dried, guys. If your partner isn't open to exploring, she says, you'll have to consider whether you're okay with leaving your fantasies in the realm of imagination. Fantasies are a valid, safe form of exploration, and it's okay to keep those private from your partner, says Dr. Brown James. There are plenty of ways to experiment alone through literotica, porn, podcasts, and self-pleasure. You can also look into ways to amp up your pleasure with your partner through the slew of cutting-edge products available now, from high-tech toys designed to hit your spot to women's health-focused organic lube. If you still feel you're missing out on great sex because of your marital dynamic, it's time to decide whether you can live with the trade-off. Whether you tackle sex FOMO solo with a toy, by experimenting with your partner, opening your marriage, or all three, the key is to do it on your terms without shame. My own fear of being boxed into the limiting identity began to subside just by talking to my husband about my untapped fantasies, and knowing that is the first step to living them out when I'm ready. This is where these female relationship experts start to get women into trouble. If a woman has an itch she has to scratch and does it with a toy or adult videos or self-pleasure, cool. If she makes herself more attractive so you're motivated to plow the life out of her, that's cool as well. But it is not okay to open your marriage. This woman is conflating self-pleasure and experimentation with your husband with sleeping with other people, and those are very different activities. And women know they're different, but as we all know, women are just looking for an excuse, any excuse at all, to engage in infidelity. And television shows, movies, social media, and articles just like this give women the permission they think they need. And no matter how much they think they've made it okay in their minds to step out on their husbands, they know it's wrong. This is why women write these articles and post on Reddit and do videos asking, is it okay that I slept with Kevin in Sales after I gave my husband a threesome with my best friend? And when she gets all the validation she needs, like, oh yeah, girl, that's perfectly okay. He signed off on it, and it's not like he hasn't slept with anybody else either. Look what you did for him. She'll tamp down those feelings of guilt again, then wonder why at 42 she's still miserable in her marriage after 18 years. Ladies, do yourselves a favor and stop taking advice from women like this. You guys know that it is not all right to sleep with men who are not your husbands or boyfriends. If you want to sleep around, fine, but don't get married and don't get into long-term relationships. You cannot have your cake and eat it too. You may think you can, and you may think you're actually doing it, but you are the one who ends up getting burned out, worn out, blown out, and eventually alone. And you'll know exactly why, even when you pretend not to. So fellas, is this article accurate, or do you agree that it's just a fancy way of giving women permission to cheat? And ladies, do you agree with the writer, or do you think women in relationships shouldn't sleep with other men? Let me know in the comments below.